Welcome everyone to today's webinar. My name is Scott Mizsak, Senior Technical Specialist at ATG. The topic of today's webinar is Bluebeam Revu, tools that can be used in the field for civil. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at Bluebeam Revu and what tools do I have available that will help me in the civil industry. So parking lots, buildings, roads, storm sewer sanitary networks, things like that. What tools do I have that will work? This webinar is being recorded and it will be posted up to our website in the near future after completion. If you have questions, feel free to put them into the chat. I will be looking at the chat as I go through this webinar. If I feel that the question warrants me stopping and addressing the question right then and there, I'll go ahead and do that. If not, I'll wait to the end, but feel free, if you have questions, put them into the chat. I'd love to answer them. A little bit about myself. I have a bachelor's degree in Geography GIS from the University of Minnesota back in 2010. I've been in the Autodesk reselling industry for about 8.5 years. Prior to that, I spent 6 years as a surveyor, NSPS Level 3 Construction Certified. I have been using Autodesk software for about 29 years since release R13, so that does make me feel old. I do specialize in the civil engineering, surveying, construction firm industry, so my software of choice is Civil 3D, Map 3D, InfoWorks. I've spoken at Autodesk University 6 times, but relative to this webinar, I am a certified technical consultant and a certified instructor for Bluebeam Revu since 2014. So here's the problem that I'm here to address. Having access to see the Civil 3D in the field can be difficult. So my project manager, my general consultant, my inspector may need to do some research on information about the project. What's the invert of this manhole supposed to be? What's the slope of this pipe supposed to be? What is the square footage of this? And pulling that information up in Civil 3D can be difficult out in the field. Why? Because you have to pull a license. You might have to borrow that license. You might have to VPN in back into the company's mainframe. Or flat out the computer itself. Usually the guys out in the field don't get that most powerful piece of equipment. And if you have to launch Civil 3D on it, Civil isn't the nicest of softwares when it comes to being used on an underpowered machine. So that's some of the issues with pulling a seat of Civil 3D, but then there's the ever so famous one. If you're not comfortable working in Civil 3D, I've dealt with a lot of project managers and general consultants that don't even know what Civil 3D is. So if you don't know what it is, you don't know how to use it, you may run the risk of accidentally altering the drawing or the design by mistake and not even know it. Hey, I want to click on that manhole, find out what invert the bottom was or how many pipes are coming into it, and I accidentally moved it, or I accidentally lowered it by mistake. Well, we don't want that. So what happens? Use Bluebeam Revu. You take your design, print it to a PDF, and now I have the ability to do a lot of my job duties out in the field on a PDF then instead of the actual true designed software or the DWG. So Revu will allow me to accomplish the majority of tasks needed to be completed in the field. Oh, and I put file, in the field by general contractors, project managers, or inspectors. Even surveyors out there can use Bluebeam Revu. Plus, like I mentioned before, the actual model is never touched, only a copy of it being the PDF. So what we're going to look at today is the tools within Revu that can assist in the civil industry, like the measure. We're going to look at how to calibrate a drawing. We've seen this constantly. People print or they set up 22 by 34 drawing sizes are 34 by 30 or 24 by 36, but then they print down to 11 by 17. Well, we know that just because the drawing went from 22 by 34 down to 11 by 17 doesn't mean it's 50%, especially if you go from 24 by 36 down to an 11 by 17. So we'll look at how to calibrate the drawing so that when I do get a dimension off of the PDF, it is accurate. Once we've done that, we'll look at the area, length, and count capabilities. We'll look at markups, creating red lines, how to set the defaults, apply a layer to the markups. We'll look at creating a tool chest for repeated design markups. We'll look at the markup list itself. Then, whoops, sorry about that. We'll look at the template. So without boring you to death with a PowerPoint, I'm going to go ahead and jump right into the software. So I have a PDF printed from Civil 3D. The nice thing about this is the ability to get distances out of here, get areas out of here. So I'm going to look at the measure command first. And the first thing that I always will do when I run the measure command is I will calibrate the drawing. Because if I come to measure, and then I say length, and I say, what is the length of, say, this building? I want to make sure that it's accurate. So first thing I will do is I will come in and I will calibrate the drawing. I'm going to pick 2 points, and I'm going to go ahead and pick my scale bar. Perfect thing to scale off of. Pick beginning, and always the longer the object, the better. Less chance of error or groups of error, because if I went to 60, well, maybe if it was off a little bit, it's going to be distorted because it's a smaller amount. So I'm going to pick 120, and I'm going to say, yep, 2 inches equals 120. I've already calibrated this drawing, so I'm going to go ahead and say apply scale. Now if I come in and run a distance check on there, I see that that building length is 398 feet, 9 1/4 inch on there. So that is the first thing that I want to do is when it comes to calibrate, or to measure, is to calibrate. Now that it's calibrated, I can go ahead and do length on there. What is the length of this run? So I can click from the center of the structure to the center of the structure and find out that that run is 315 feet, almost 316 feet. I can also get the area. I need to know the area of this island for how much black dirt I need. I can come in and click on perimeter. I can click on area and come through and pick my area around here. And that's 537 square feet. Well, if I don't like square feet, I need yards. I can quickly open up the properties and switch it to yards. Come over here and send it to square yards. Now it's 60 square yards based off of that size on there. I can also use what's called the dynamic fill. So when I did this, it wasn't perfect because I was just picking things around. Well, I got curves on there. Well, if I come in and I want to know the true area of that, I can actually say dynamic fill. And I'm going to open this up just a little bit bigger, and you'll see dynamic fill as the last icon on there. I'm going to click dynamic fill, and I'm going to want area. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to use the fill command. So the first thing I do is I select what I want, whether it's creating a space, which we'll get into spaces, polygon markup, perimeter, and such. I want area. So I'm going to go and say fill. And that cursor, it looks a little bit big on there. So I'm going to quickly lower my fill size down just a little bit, just to make it a little bit smaller. And all I got to do is hold, and it will fill that area in for me. When I'm done filling that area in, all I have to do is say apply, and it just spit out 330.2928 square feet. Again, let's go square yards, and it's 36.7 square yards. And it's a little more accurate. Yes, it's still a chord, but it's a lot better chord than the chord that I built right there. Your area, your length works out really nice on here. What I can also do is when I click on that, I see, oh, the subject is area measurement. Well, I need this to be black dirt. Black dirt or topsoil or vegetation, something along that line. And I can put in that value as a subject. And for this one, for the length, instead of a subject length measurement, maybe it's storm pipe for the subject. What this does is it allows me to actually look at my capabilities or look at these values in what's called the markup list. If I open up the bottom panel, I will actually see subjects, comments, area, lengths, and because I created this with a subject storm pipe, and this one is topsoil, that's topsoil. Let's make this one topsoil. Get rid of, there we go, topsoil. It now groups down in the markup list by subject. So I can say sort by subject, and I see topsoil is grouped together. What I also see in my markup list is that one is 59.7 square yards, one's 36.66 square yards, but I have a total of 96.37 square yards. Well, if I need to know the area of seating, I can create another area instead of topsoil, but has the subject seating. Or maybe it's blacktop or bituminous or asphalt for the parking lot. How much bituminous do I need to pave this parking lot? Come in, I put in the area, and then I give it a depth. 3 inches, 0.25, 4 inches, 33 hundredths, and I can get depth, and then I can get the volume for how much bituminous I need. Well, when it comes to bituminous, they don't really talk about area or volume, they talk about tonnage. Well, I can create a custom column in here that will take the area or the volume and then multiply it by a value to get the tonnage in there, and we'll look at that in a little bit. But what I'm looking at now is I'm looking at creating multiple areas, multiple length commands, because I need a length that says storm pipe, I need a length that says sanitary pipe, I need a length that says water main, I need an area that says topsoil, bituminous, concrete, seating on there. Well, once I've created one of my markups, I can come in and change the color, change the subject. So maybe instead of the appearance being red and red, I can make it blue or green or yellow or whatever. But then what I can do is I can come in and add it to what's called a tool chest. And I'm going to go ahead and open my tool chest. And what I see is I have one designed for project managers already. And what I have the capability of doing is calculate the area of green space, calculate the area of blacktop. I have to be installed, as-built storm, one is text, one is a line. And then to be installed sanitary, as-built sanitary, both text and lines. What this allows me to do is, I'll go ahead, since I've been doing area right now, is I can come and say area, green space, and just quickly, let's get rid of that one because I double-clicked area, and I can quickly come around, and I'll do this kind of crude, and then double-click, and it came in and highlighted my area, 90.34 square yards. It has area green space already built into there. It has all those values that I want, and if I choose area blacktop, and I'll just do a quick area right here, it comes in looking totally different. Now I'm able to see what is the area calculated for blacktop, what is the area created for green space. By adding these two area callouts, these markups, as different properties, but then adding them to my tool chest. And because we'll quickly add another one in here, I'll widen that out a little bit. That should work. And then I'll add another green space. When I go into my markup list, everything is sorted by green space. I see my total area. So if I need to know, again, how much seating I need, guess what? There's my total area. If I need to know how much blacktop I need, there's my area on there. The other thing I have is my length. So we were talking about pipe. Well, I have one for yellow striping. I can come in, click, and click. And then I click. Let me shrink this down on here, and we will add yellow striping. From here to here. And it dropped in the line, but it wasn't a measurement command. So it's there, but in my markup list, there is my 3 yellow stripes that I put in. Gives me my total length. Now, if I need to know how much paint I need to paint a yellow stripe 4 inches wide, I have the total length on there. The next thing that I have the capability of doing is, I'll go ahead and delete out some of these things. Is I have the ability to do a search. How many storm manholes do I have in this plan? Well, I can come in and I can count, and I say, well, catch basin, catch basin. Oh, I see 1, 2, 3 on the south side. Looks like I got 1, 2, 3, 4 in the road. So now I'm up to 7, and then 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I'm counting 14 manholes out there. Well, let's run a search for manholes. I'm going to go up to the search tab. I call it the lollipop. And I can search for text and search for the word D, and it will look for the drawing, and it will look for anything that has the D in there. Well, if that D isn't a true type font, it's not going to find it. The search for text has to be a true type font for it to find it. If you have the extreme version of Revu, you do have the ability to run object character recognition, OCR, on it, and then it will find the D. But when it comes to civil plans, you know what? Searching for the actual object works the best for me. So I'm going to zoom in on my D, on my storm manhole, and now I'm actually going to search for an image, visual search. And I'm just going to draw a rectangle around my manhole. And now I'm going to search. And what it's going to do is it's going to search my document, which is only 1, and it's going to come through and it's going to say, hey, I found 16 of them. I'm going to do a quick scroll through, and it looks like every one that it found was actually a manhole. So I said 14, it found 16, which meant I missed I missed 2 on here. So what I can do is say, well, where did I miss them? So now what I can do is I can actually do a count, because my job is estimating. Based off of this plan set, 16 manholes, and we'll go with just a basic 48-inch manhole, is going to cost $50 a manhole. Well, at 16, that's at $50 a pop, that's $800 for manholes. But for me to get that $800, I need to count them all up. Now that I've done a search, I have the ability to actually come in and check them all. And then I can apply a count. Apply count measurement to this. So I'm going to add, in this case, we'll go with a circle. And it came through and added 16 circles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I missed these 2 right here. I missed those. But there's the 16 on there. The other nice thing about this is the ability in the markup list, it will come through and it will add the count for me. 12 and 4 for the count measurement on there. So I have a total of 16. The one thing is I have a space in here, so they're actually separated out right now. We'll talk about spaces here in a second. They could be good, they could be bad. Right now they're bad because they are actually dividing up my count. Well, when I counted this, I did the search, it went in with the subject count measurement. Well, guess what? In my tool chest, I actually have a count of store manholes to be installed on there. So now what I have is I'm just going to go ahead and delete this out. Delete, get rid of all the other ones. And now go back to my search. And now instead of doing a count, I can actually come in and say to be installed. And now they come in as red check marks. In my list, there's still the 12 and 14, but what this allows me to do is when I'm the inspector and at the end of the day, they came in and say, yep, that one's been installed. I can come through and say, delete to be installed from group. Well, now I only deleted out that one, and maybe they added that one, put that one in. Now my markup list comes in and says, hey, now there's 14 to still be installed. It helps me track the progress of my project. What's been installed, what hasn't been installed? Well, right here, this tells me that there's still 14 manholes that need to be installed. If I know how many were in the project to begin with, I know what percentage of the project has been completed. And I could do that by adding another count saying total structures, total pipe, and then doing the count, and then I could actually subtract the 2 from each other. With the search, visual search, get rectangle, get rectangle, there we go, search. Now I can search for catch basins, and in this document, it found 11 catch basins, as it states right there. We've looked at the measure command, we've calibrated, we've done areas, we've done lengths, we've done the dynamic fill in there. We've looked at searching, we looked at counting. We've done a little bit of markups on here because measurements is a markup, but I can also come in and I can do as-builts on here. So I'm gonna look at adding a markup in here. So I'm gonna switch to another drawing, and it's got catch basin, CB 101, supposed to have a rim at 800 feet, a northwest invert at 795, and a southwest invert at 795.1. Well, the project's complete, and now I'm the surveyor, and I have to come back and I have to do an as-built on here. So what I want to do is I want to come in and I'm going to put my GPS unit or my prism pull on that rim, and I'm going to get the elevation of the rim. However I do it, that's insignificant, but now what I need to do is find out that this rim is actually at an 800.2 elevation. Well, I want to come in and I want to run a markup, and I want to do a line command, and I want to strike through the 800 to say, hey, that value is no longer good, and I'll even be nice and just strike through the 800. But now I want to come in and I want to put markup, I want to drop in a text box, put it right there, and put in 800.2. And as you can see, I already have some issues on here with my text being a little too big. I'm going to come through. I'm going to change my font size down to 12. Well, let's highlight the font. Now make it font size 12. And maybe I want the font to be red to signify it was an as-built. So now it's red. And even 12 is still a little bit too big. So let's go with 8. 8 looks good. So now I'll come through, auto text size my box, and then I'll move it right next to that value. Well, there's my text box saying that the elevation is now 800.2. Well, guess what? Subject, as-built, storm. I want my as-built for my storm to be on one layer, my as-built for sanitary or water main to be on another. Well, there's my storm. And if I come in, Control C, Control V, drop in another one right in here. Now maybe I want sanitary to be green. So I can quickly change this one to be sanitary. And then change the text color to be, say, green. And now what I do is I quickly right-click, add to tool chest. And I'm going to add that to my tools. And I'm going to add this one to my tools. So now I have two values up in here that are text values. 1, 2, and if I click on this one, it's already defaulted to as-built storm. It's red, it's font size 8. And this one right here is as-built sanitary, green, and font size 8. So everything has that value for me. But not all my rim shots are going to be 800.2. Maybe my northwest invert is a 795.05. Well, do I really want to have to come in and drop that in, then double click and say 795.05? Well, guess what? Now it didn't fit, so now I got to stretch it out. Now I have to do auto text size. It's a lot of work. I'm already fatigued. What if I come in and I double click on this and I go from drawing mode to property mode? So I'm going to double click on this. And you notice it used to say 800.2. Now it gives me 2 fonts on there, an image. Well, if I come in and put this and draw that in there and put 795 point, we got to be a little bit higher on there because it did work at least. 795.15. It allowed me to put whatever text I wanted in there, but it maintained as-built storm, red, font size 8, all that other properties on there. This is property mode. This is drawing mode. This is verbatim. This is just take on the properties, but put whatever you want in there. And that's what I've done down in here. I've come in and I've added as-built storm that if I double click on it, it's now in property mode. This one in here is in drawing mode. And I can just drop in this note right here and put whatever I want in there. I have the line work on there. Pre-built. Already comes through, already strikes it through. So now as I'm doing storm and sanitary, I don't have to keep switching back and forth between them. I don't have to come in and say, hey, make this my default. Make red my default, because now when I'm doing sanitary, guess what? It's not going to work. It's red. Oh, wait, let's make sanitary default. Green 8. Make that default. Next time I put in the text box, Tools, Markup, Text box, it comes in with green text, font size 8. This allows me to keep switching back and forth between one appearance and the other. In this case, storm versus sanitary, red versus green, because it's all pre-built in here for me. I also have the ability to add a count into my list of, hey, what still needs to be installed? Come through, come through, come through. Add my count to be installed. There is my subject, as-built sanitary, as-built storm, line, to be installed storm. I have a total of 6 structures that still need to be installed on there. I have gone through and I've added markups. I've modified the markups to match my discipline, in this case, storm, sanitary, potentially water main, green space, blacktop, whatever. I've added them to a tool set. And I've already built one, project managers with a bunch of them in there, but let's go ahead and add one of these into a brand new tool chest or tool set. To do this, I come through and I'll come in to my tool chest. So it's a little toolbox icon, tool chest, and I'm going to come in and say manage tool sets. And I'm going to say add. And I'm going to call this webinar. Before I say okay, the options display, so it'll turn on right away, showing all profiles. Well, if you run multiple profiles in Bluebeam Revu, do you want it to only show up in one versus the other? Well, if you're doing estimating, yeah, I want this to show up. But if I'm doing admin, no, I don't want it to show up. So but in this case, I'm going to say shown all. So I'm going to go ahead and say okay. Give it the name again, webinar, and it's going to store it in my location under Bluebeam Revu 2019 on here. So I'll go ahead and say save. And then I'm going to go ahead and move this up to the top. I'm going to put that right under my tools. I'm going to go ahead and say okay. And now that I've built an empty tool set, I need to populate it. Option 1 is drag and drop. So here is my storm. Here is my sanitary. I can just drag that into there, drag that into there. I can drag that into there. I can right click and say, yeah, I don't want that, get rid of it. I can drag and drop. Works really nice. Or delete, delete. I can right click on the object and then say add to tool chest and then add it to the webinar. Add to webinar. Now, all I see is 800.2, 795.15. That doesn't really help me much. But this one right here, it actually comes through and it actually says area green space, area blacktop. It tells me a little bit more about what it is because it's actually reading the subject, it's reading the comment. If I come into this gear and I go and I switch from symbol mode to detail mode, now I see as-built sanitary, as-built storm. I see what it's talking about. And then the comment on there, well, you know what? I'll cheat a little bit. And I'm actually going to change this to be cap locks elevation. And the wonderful land of Zoom and all that. Sometimes my fonts don't work. So now I have elevation in there, and now I'll add this to webinar. And now I see subject, as-built storm, comment, it's the elevation. So now if I switch to property mode, I see that this is the elevation. And then if I drop in a line, that one's a little bit easier to understand because that is just a line. But I still see as-built storm, and this just calls out the comment is elevation. And maybe if I had the ability to put a comment in there, I could, just to say strike through. This is all fine and dandy. Putting in markups, setting defaults, creating a tool chest works. But this drawing isn't that complicated, but what if it was? What if I was dealing with something that was overly complicated and it had a lot of information in there? The nice thing about printing from Civil 3D is that it's AutoCAD based. And when you do a DWG to PDF and you go into the PDF options, you actually have the ability to include the layers in there. So what I have is I have all my layers set up right here with everything that was used. Obviously, there's about 400 layers in Civil 3D, depending on your template, but I can actually come through and I can say, hey, you know what? Turn off my buildings. Let's turn off everything but the edge of my parking lot. So I'll come through and I'll delete edge of pavement. I'll get rid of my parking stripes. And I just turned everything off except for my edge of pavement, which is gray. Well, let's just add in some parking stalls on there, which now helps me do a quick calculation on there. I'm gonna run through my tool chest and I'm gonna add some stalls on here, some quick counts. So I'll add some white parking on here, from here to here, from here to here. From there to there. So I added 4 parking lines on there. Through my markup list, I see, yep, I have a length of almost 900 feet worth of white paint that I need to put in there. What I want to do is I want to assign who's in charge of this on there. I'm going to come in and I have a column called Assign To. And when I click on this, I have user 5, user 6. I'm going to assign this all to user 5, which may be my painting company. But how do I get to assign? Well, I come to my markup list, columns, manage columns. From here, I'm going to go to custom columns, and I have 3 custom columns in here. Assign To, material, total cost. I'm going to come in through Assign To. I'm going to modify this, and I'm going to make user 5 only be available to paint stripe white. And I'm going to assign a value to this on how much does it cost per linear foot of paint. And we're going to say a nickel. For every foot of paint, it costs 1 nickel. I'm going to go ahead and say okay. And I'm going to go and say okay. And now I'm going to look at material. And I'm going to modify this. And now I have the ability of carpet, tile, hardwood, but I'm going to go ahead and add a new material in here called paint with the subject of paint stripe white. Assign a value, nickel. Say okay. Then my total cost, I'm going to modify this, and it's going to be my material times length. Say okay. Say okay. Now I have my Assign To. Didn't really have to add the material in there or the cost, but my material for white paint is paint. And what that did was it will cost me $10.80 for that stripe. That stripe. It's going to cost me $45 to paint those 4 lines. Now, is that nickel just for material? It could be. Could I put labor in there? Could I put overhead in there? Because you know what? It cost me money to get the paint shipped to the site. It cost me money to transport it, however it got there. And then the labor to actually pour it into the machine and then stripe it. I could come in and add material, labor, total cost, but I was able to come through, create a custom column and say material and say total cost. Well, I'm gonna come through and say user 6 is in there. So now I have 4 lines, 2 to user 5, 2 to user 6, and I need to make sure that user 5 gets his to-do list. Hey, I did a walkthrough Monday morning at 6 a.m. I've now submitted everybody's to-do list, and user 5's got 2, user 6 has 2. Well, this is a small list. There's only 4 things. So it's going to be easier for user 5 to see the 2 things that he has. But what if this list is 400 things long? Well, 400 things long, you know what? I might have 5, I might have 6. I don't know how many I have, but I have to go through all 400 to get that. Well, I'm able to sort by subject. I'm also able to sort by user. And now I can come through sort by user and see user 5. Hey, here's the 2 things that I'm after. I can also come in and say filter. And what this will do is this will allow me to filter down to just user 5. Doesn't matter where they're at, everything's sorted. Now I see my 2. 2 out of 400 is a lot easier to find if it's 2 out of 2 than 2 out of 400, because I don't want to search through all 400 because I may find 5 things that I think I'm responsible for. I may find only 1. But now I found just the 2. And what this also allows me to do is to actually come out and create a summary that will be just for user 5. Now send that out. User 5 gets his to-do list and it shows the 2 things that he's responsible to do. When user 5 is done and he's completed the paint striping, he can actually come into this status and he can actually say completed. And then completed. Shows that his work is now done. This shows accountability, traceability, and project management. When that job is completed, I can see when it was completed and by who. Typically, it would say user 5. In this case, it's saying James Bond on there. 85% of all markups get handled the first time when that markup list is utilized properly. What I have is, again, I have measuring tools, area, length, volume. I have markups on here for as-builts. I have that tool chest. I'm able, in the markup list, I have the ability to filter or sort, just like a basic spreadsheet. Let's unfilter, and then let's sort by subject. Now all the paint stripes are sorted together, the total linear feet, but then if I go to assign to, now it's broken out into individuals based off of the user. Let's sort by total cost. Let's sort by material. Filter. The last thing that comes into play when using Bluebeam Revu on the civil side is the ability to start with a template. I want to come in and maybe I'm doing a walkthrough. I'm doing an inspection and I need to create a list. Well, I don't want to come in and say file, new PDF, custom 8.5 by 11. There is my PDF. Oh, this one right here. There's my PDF. It's blank. I don't want to have to come in and say create new PDF, save as from an old document or an old drawing. But if I come in and say new PDF from template, and I say RFI, request for information, and I say form, now I actually have a form that's pre-built in here. What is today's date? And the reason this said form is because these values are pre-set up. Yep, that's good. And I can plop in all this information right off just by clicking in there. And that's what I did here is I created one that put today's date, an RFI number from ATG USA, Storm Guys, delivery date of storm structures. Hey, I'm looking for when is the storm and structures and pipes going to be delivered for the north parking lot. It's now been graded, it's ready to go. Location, north parking lot, job. I just dropped in an image of my signature. I could have signed it, the date, response. The other thing that I can do in Bluebeam Revu, especially when you're talking about inspections or RFIs, is I can actually come in and say Tools, Markups Image, and I can actually drop in a picture. So if I have an iPad or something, I can actually drop in an image of the issue. Hey, take a picture of the north parking lot. There's no pipe there. Where is it? Drop in that picture. Hey, this storm manhole got run over by a backhoe. It needs to be replaced. Drop in that markup. Come in here. Go back to my layers. Show all. And I need to drop in a markup on here. And I'm just going to use Tools, Markups, Text Box. Catch basin destroyed by equipment, needs to be replaced. Already ordered from vendor. We'll go to courier on there. Put in my note. Hey, come through my markup list. It's there. You know what? Yep, it's definitely broken. It will be replaced. And maybe 2 days from now, once the new catch basin gets in, my pipe crew has put it in, and it will show they've accepted it, that it's broken, and then it was completed on there. These are the tools that can help on the civil side inside Bluebeam Revu. Does this replace Civil 3D? Definitely not. But if I'm running an iPad, if I'm running a tablet, if I'm running a beaten down laptop, you know what? Civil 3D may not run on it. Bluebeam Revu will probably run on it. Can I get the same functionality as a project manager, as a general contractor, as an inspector, as potentially even a surveyor? Yes, I can. I can come in and state that, yep, I set those, I stake those out for construction staking. My pipe crews, yep, they've put them in. They can actually mark down this was completed. So they can show that these were completed. Don't need the full sheet of Civil 3D. I can get by with a PDF. With that, I'd like to thank everyone for attending. Thank you.